Hi, everybody. In this episode, I had a question from somebody on YouTube asking about using proxy workflow with the DJI Phantom camera, and mentioning that some of the presets that the QuickTime preset was actually going about larger than the actual DJI file. So if you want to get this, and actually what that's doing is it's encoding to like actually a more optimized codec, so it does have some data to it. But if you want to get it down really small, you're going to have to use H.264. But in this, I'm going to be talking about encoding. I've got three different clips here, or three different types of formats with different audio channels. And because of the nature of every file, we're going to be creating a custom preset for these things, and not necessarily using the presets inside of Premiere. We're going to go to Media Encoder and make our own presets. Go to Proxy and say Create Proxy. You're just going to have a few presets here. If you pull these down, there's some in here that I've customized, so you're not going to see some of these on yours. But it usually has these three here under the QuickTime area here. QuickTime, it'll compress to really good optimized footage. H.264 are going to be smaller files, but they're not going to be optimized, but they still work really well because they are a lot smaller. They're very compressed, so they will operate very quickly. So if you want to get the size of the file down, so a couple things. If you want to get the size of the file down, you're going to have to make your own custom preset, and also if you want to get it to actually work with something like the DJI, you're going to have to make a custom preset as well. You're not going to be able to use the presets in here. And the reason why is because those presets that I was showing you have audio included, and you want to mirror the file so they're exactly the same, not necessarily resolution or frame rate. Of course, those are good. The resolution is going to be different. The frame rate is going to be exact. You are bringing down the resolution and the data rate of the file, which is fine. And that's going to give you the speed, but you do have to mirror things like resolution and also the very nature of the file. And that's what I'm getting at right here. Look at this. This has both audio and video contained here. This has both audio and video contained. This is just video, and those presets that are inside the proxy workflow are just have video and audio linked, so that doesn't really work. If you encode it, it'll work for the encode, but then when you come back to edit again or to go to a different machine, it's going to say the proxy files can't be found. So I'm going to have to make a custom one for this file. You're just going to have to know your files, know what your and this is kind of the same that Proxy has always been. You always have to be familiar with those things. So look at this Sony file here. If I drag this into a timeline, look at this. It's not just audio, but this has 4 audio channels. This has 4 mono audio channels, and these are not stereo either. That's important to know, that when you make a preset, you got to make a preset for this camera that is a video with 4 mono audio channels on it. Let me undo that. I'm going to grab my DSLR footage here and drop that in, change the settings, and notice that this here is one audio file, but it is a stereo. It has a left and right, and that's what the presets are built for. It works great with DSLR footage for the proxy workflow. It works. Those presets work horribly for red footage. It works horribly for the Sony footage. It works horribly for the DJI footage. So you got to make custom presets determined on the type of camera that you are actually using. So let's do that for these. I'm going to do that for the DJI. The question was on the DJI here, so I'm going to open up Media Encoder. And we're going to use Media Encoder to create those presets. And this is a couple steps here. You're going to have to first of all go under Create New Preset, and we're going to create a new encoding preset. Because the Ingest preset, you just can't go right to Ingest presets without having created an encoding preset first. Because the Ingest preset, the Ingest that's being used for the proxies it references your encoding presets. So it's a little confusing, but it's a kind of a step you have to take. So I'm going to do Create Encoding Preset. It's going to bring up the encoding preset, and I'm going to say, I want to do, and you have all these to choose from, QuickTime and H.264. For this one, I'm going to do specifically H.264 because we're trying to get the size of the files down. So I'm going to do H.264. I'm going to pull down my presets. I'm going to start with my YouTube presets. I'm going to go down and I'm going to choose my YouTube 720 preset. Now, this is going to be kind of easy for the DJI because, well, first of all, my DJI is Ultra HD, so it's a 16:9 aspect ratio, and this is important as well. So 720 is also 16:9, so this is going to actually work for that same resolution. And this, when you bring the resolution size down, you just usually want to make so it doesn't get letterboxed or pillar boxed. You just want to make sure that your aspect ratio matches. 1280 by 720 is the exact same aspect ratio as 3840 by 2160. These are both 16:9 aspect ratio, so this is going to be pixel per pixel, the same aspect ratio. But one thing I'm going to uncheck here is export audio. Uncheck that, and I'm going to go look at my data rate on my video as well, because this one, remember, my DJI does not have audio, so I'm not doing audio. I'm going to scroll down and look at my target bit rate. I'm just going to make this a constant bit rate and make this go down. We'll take it down even further from 16. 16 would be a good size, but let's take it down to 10 just to get the size down even further. You don't want to take it down too far, or it's going to start. You don't want to take it down too far, or your quality will start dipping, and it'll be tough to edit because you can't tell if anything's in focus if the quality's too bad. One other thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to effects. This you don't have to do, but I like doing it. I like adding a time code so I can tell the difference between my proxy footage and my high quality footage. I'm going to check mark my time code overlay. I'm going to pull this down. I'm going to say bottom right, so it'll be kind of out of the way of my image and the bottom right. Okay, I'm going to name this. I'm going to call this DJI Encode. So I know that this is an encode preset that's going to be found under the H.264 category. I'm going to hit OK, and there it is right there. But that is not your ingest preset. Now we have to export out an ingest preset. So I'm going to go up here and arrow down and say create an ingest preset. I'm going to go to transcode files to destination is the type of function we're using for this ingest preset. And I'm going to go down here to my format. We're already under H.264, but if you're not seeing your preset under here, it's probably because you are not under the right category. You have to change your format to where you put your preset. So I'm going to go to, and it's already there, H.264. I'm going to go to my preset, and I'm going to go up the top, and my presets are found at the top. Here's my preset that I created for the H.264. I'm going to select that, and there we go. You have to set a destination as well. You can change this when you do your ingest anyway. Right now, I'm just going to choose my desktop. Right now, I'm just going to put it to my desktop. Otherwise, you can browse the location, put it somewhere different, but you can change that when you actually ingest it anyway. So right now, I'm just putting it to my desktop. And I'm going to name this as well. I'm going to call this DJI Ingest. Hit OK, and there it is right there. There's my ingest setting. Now, I'm going to right-click on this, and we're going to export that preset. My ingest preset. I'm going to just save that on my desktop right now. I'm going to save there my DJI ingest preset, and now I can close Media Encoder. So now from here, if I want to create my proxy files, I'm going to go to my DJI. I can go to all my DJI footage, right-click on it, and go to Proxy, and I'm going to create a proxy here. And I'm just for this one file, but you can do it for a big group or a folder of files here. And I'm going to go under right here, I'm going to go to Add Ingest Preset. I'm going to go to my desktop, and I'm going to find my DJI Ingest file right there. There's the settings, and it does have it for the desktop, but I can change that now. I can say, no, I want it. I want to make a folder. I want to make a new folder that is my proxies. I'll just call this proxies. Proxy's good. There we go. Select that folder. I'm going to make that my destination. Now I'm going to hit OK. It'll open up Media Encoder, and it will encode that. Okay, well, that's encoding. I'm going to go back to Premiere because I want to talk about like this Sony file. So if you have different files with different audio, look at the nature of these files. So notice here that these files have the 4 mono channels. That's the way they work at channel 1 through 4. So in Media Encoder, I'm going to have to set up one for that as well. Okay, this is already done, so we'll show that later. But now I will have to go through the same process. I'm going to have to go under Create Encoding Preset. I'm going to do one for my Sony here. So I'll call this Sony. I can call this Sony like 4 channel just to be very specific, and I can go into new preset, and I can choose once again like my YouTube, start with my YouTube preset, and go under audio. And this is something about H.264 that you're going to notice. And this is one limitation of the H.264 codec here is I pull this down, you can do mono, but it just does a single mono channel. So this actually will not work. So you do stereo or 5.1, it will not match that Sony file. So what I'm going to have to do here is I'm going to choose QuickTime. So this, you're going to have to use a different type of format for this. And I'm going to start with GoPro Cineform is a good one to start with here. So I'm going to start with that. And then I go under audio here. So down here, I kind of misspoke. Down here, I'm going to say we're going to do a mono channel, but now I'm going to add. And right there, I've got now this set up. I've got my 4 mono channels. Each one of these is a mono because those could be stereo as well, but I am matching my Sony by doing this. And then I can also go to my effects and add my timecode overlay as well and do it at the bottom right. And now when I encode that, It'll have those 4 channels. I've got it set. Let's go to video, and I can set this once again for, I'm going to take my quality down to like 3 here. Just actually, let's take it down to 2. That's still pretty good quality. That's about like about 20 megabits per second, so that's still pretty high quality. But with the QuickTime video here, a couple things that I do have to change since I didn't use the preset, like a YouTube preset. I have to uncheck your width and your height, and I'm going to set this as 1280 and 720 here. And if it's constraining here, you have to turn that chain off right there so you can type in your own resolution. And frame rate, I'm going to actually, and this is also something that has to change here as well, because this frame rate for my Sony stuff was 23.976. So these are, so you have to go through a couple more things on here to get it to match exactly. I'm going to hit OK, and those are saved there in my Sony channel. So now I have to create my ingest setting, same way as before. I create ingest preset. I got this transcode check marked. I'm going to go under QuickTime instead of H.264 and pull down my presets, and there's my Sony 4 channel right there. I'm going to hit OK, and it's created that. Oops, I didn't name it. Preset settings, name that to Sony 4 channel ingest. So I know that that is my actual ingest settings there. Hit OK, right click on it, export it, put it to the desktop. Go back to Premiere. Right-click on this, go to Proxy, create proxies for all my Sony footage, do add ingest preset, select my Sony 4 channel for this type of camera. I'm going to have it in the same folder there. I'm just going to hit OK, and it will start creating that proxy job for the Sony footage. And now I've got my DSLR. I'm not going to do the same process again, but same thing, you have to change that. This one actually will use those presets that I already have built into Premiere because it is 1920 by 1080. It's got, mainly because of the nature of the audio. It is a single stereo file. So all right, once this is done encoding, then I'll come back and kind of show how to work with that footage from there on. Okay, now that that's all done, I'm going to close Media Encoder, and let's generate a timeline and start editing here. So first of all, I'm going to kind of decide the type of timeline that I want to work in. I'm going to work in, now this is 30 frames per second. I'm going to conform my 24 to fit the 29.97 because that's an easier way to go. So I'm going to generate a timeline based off of the DJI, change the sequence settings, and set it in there. There we go. Okay, so I've got my timeline generated, and I've got it in the same settings as my DJI. Let me change this to edit, so I know that's my edit. So this is what I'm going to edit everything in, is that. So I'm going to select my other footage that I'm working with, and we're going to go up to, and just make sure that I'm going to select these 2 clips and just make sure all my footage, if my preferences weren't set, I can go up under clip and move down to video options and have this check marked scale to frame size right there. So I'm going to check mark that and make sure that these are scale to frame size right there. Now that attribute's been added to those videos, so those will scale to this timeline resolution, whatever that is, like my 1920 by 1080. I'll keep existing settings, will zoom up and fit this screen here, even though this is a 4K timeline, well, an Ultra HD timeline. So I'm going to delete that. Let's grab my DJI footage, drop that in. And I'm going to grab my Sony footage, drop it in. I don't need my audio, so I'm just going to get rid of my audio here. I've got my Sony footage in there, and I've got my DJI. Now, if you don't have this little toggle proxies up here, actually, let me get it back to where it will kind of normally be. Let's clear that there. I'm going to reset my layout. So this is what it normally looks like. And hit the little plus button. Grab my proxies, drag it down here, drop it, hit OK. And now when I play, this is playing the full 4K footage here, and it will get laggy eventually if my computer can't keep up with it. Same here on the Sony. As I play it, it will start getting really laggy and stuttery eventually. So if I hit my little proxy button here, there's my timecode window burned into the video. I know that is my proxy footage. I move back here, and sure enough, there's my proxy footage there. And let's do one more thing. I'm going to show kind of the size of these files here to show a little bit of a difference here. So I'm going to go to my proxy footage here, and here's my proxy footage. Let me find my original footage. Here's my original, at least my original DJI footage. Let's look at the difference between this. I'm going to right-click, go to Properties, and this is about 600 megabytes for that file there. I right-click on the proxy, go to Properties. Since this is H.264, it's like one-fifth the size there. So it's very, very small. It'll edit very quickly, and it doesn't look too bad at all. In fact, let's zoom up on this a little bit, and that looks actually really good. So that quality, it did a really good compression for how small the file is. It's removed a lot of information, but it's good enough quality to edit it. And then when you want to go back to your regular footage, your high quality footage, just turn out the proxy. So that's kind of that workflow. I know it's a little bit tedious, but it's really good to know, especially when you're working with multiple formats, resolutions, different frame rates, different audio channels, and the nature of the audio channels change from a stereo to mono to no audio. You got to be aware of those things and be able to create a preset. Once you create that preset for an entire project, then it's like pretty much, you just have to be very conscious of it. Then it's pretty much a big solid workflow from there on out.